It's a great day to be a Coyote. Welcome, Coyote Nation, to another episode of Back to Pack Podcast, where we are going to be bringing you all of your favorite games, memories, and of course, discussion with our fellow Coyotes. As a disclaimer, we have no affiliation to the University of South Dakota. This is a podcast ran by fans for fans. The ideas and comments do not represent the university. Our opinions are our own. Be sure to find us on Twitter at BackToPackSD. With that being said, let's jump in. All right, Mitch. You had to pull it up. The good news is it works.
It's perfect.
The words actually play, right? There's us and 3 state schools left.
Hate them all.
Hate them all.
Right. Exactly. Hate them all.
How you guys doing?
Doing well. I mean, it's let's see, December 19th, and we're still doing podcasts about USD making a playoff run. So how could we not be just thrilled?
Doing pregame podcasts.
Pre-game podcast. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pre-game podcast, let alone podcasts.
Man.
How did everybody's work week go?
I'm jacked. I don't know about you guys, but I'm absolutely jacked for this weekend.
So who didn't get any work done at all this week?
Yep. Nobody.
It's brutal. It's brutal each week. I think, oh my gosh, like this next game is just, next level, and the next game is much more next level, and it's the busy time of year here with the end of the year coming up. So it's a deadly combo for work and productivity. No doubt about it.
Just check out of the office. Just check out of the office. It's close enough to Christmas. Just call it.
Fortunate enough.
You're going to be busy for the next couple of weeks, so just call it now.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I will say I'm fortunate enough. I work for General Motors. They shut down from Saturday to the 2nd.
Beautiful.
So the amount of information I will provide for when the we're doing the pregame show for the USD championship will be top level, because I'll have a lot of time to break them down of a team that I already know.
There you go. Show every day.
You're all over it.
We'll see. All right. I am excited, though. We're in the semifinals. We're going out to probably the coolest stadium in all of FCS, in my opinion. Built it right into a mountain, and we have a chance to shock the world because nobody believes in us. Do you ask for anything better?
Spot on.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best part about it, is it's pretty much us against the world at this point, fellas. We've gone through the rounds that people expected us to go through, minus a handful of them last week, but here we are now in the yeah, we won't go there again, but here we are, in the semis, and everybody's doubting us at this point, so it's us against the world.
It is. I was always under the impression that Montana State knew how to fill their stadium. But what did I receive from you, Mitch, the other day? Students got a free ticket. And not only that, but if they brought a family member, a non-student of some sort, that person also got a free ticket?
Yeah, that's right. So they were giving away free student tickets, no big deal. And then you got 2 buddy passes to go with that. So not sure, never heard of that one before. Really, really unique. But hey, I guess if that's what it takes to pack it out, that's what it takes.
I don't know. I'm already skeptical of these so-called sellouts that they have. Next thing they're going to tell us is they're pumping in the crowd noise too.
Would agree, especially after the video Grant sent us today they're just from their official Twitter. I don't know. That sounded like piped-in crowd noise, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Jake and Mitch are just out here trying to get the old Bobcat fans riled. I love it.
I'm already a beer deep. You might get some hot takes tonight.
There's I tell you what, the chat boards are kind of going crazy all over the place, whether it's Facebook or the old school forums out there. Everything's just kind of on fire right now, which is awesome and something that we haven't been a part of. So hey, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Mitch, and we're in a position where we're the number 4 team of 4 teams left, right? So we are the true underdog. You have to play number 1, which makes that even more of an underdog story. But I love this spot for this team. I really do, because this team has been laser focused all year. They really relish that underdog role, I believe, and I think it's really, I don't know if this is the right term, but it feels like we're playing with house money at this point, right? It's everybody says, oh,
Yes.
the road ends for USD at Montana State. That place is too tough to play. They're number one. They haven't lost all year. Really feels like you're kind of going into this game with almost a nothing to lose mentality, which, I think the boys would beg to differ and say we've got everything to play for, right, in this position.
Mhm.
But I love this spot for USD. I'll be really honest. I think it's great.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a couple of things, Grant, there, and just kind of what the national narrative is. I know I threw out that list
Mm-hmm.
earlier this week, and it's like, all these things are against us: the travel, the extra day of rest they got,
Mm-hmm.
slash the travel day that we're making, the elevation, their home stadium, their number one, all these things. The list goes on and on and on. And I agree. It all means Jack Diddley right now. Let's just tee it up and see what happens.
Exactly. I don't know about you guys. I'm ready to jump into this game.
Oh yeah.
Talk about how we're going to do it on offense or defense first.
Well, let's talk about while we're on offense, they're on defense first.
Mm-hmm.
But I will preface this with this is the first week where I did not get too caught up in the metrics. And maybe it's a little cliche to say, but I think these 4 teams that are left are all elite type teams. Every team that's left right now can win a national championship. And it starts to feel like when you start to look at the metrics for all these 4 teams, it really is kind of a similar story where you're like, wow, this team's really good on offense and they're really good on defense. And you start to get those numbers put together. And there's some things that we'll talk about tonight, of course, with those metrics, but it's like, it's just kind of funny, right? There's not a lot you can draw from them because all these
Mm-hmm.
teams have been so good all year long on both sides of the ball, which of course that's what you're going to get with a semifinal matchup on both sides of the ball, on both games. So it is kind of funny from that perspective, from the metrics anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
You're hurting my heart, Grant. You're hurting my heart.
Well, no, they say, Mitch, you and I both are metric guys. We love the metrics, and
Yeah.
there is still a lot of stuff we can pull from that. But it is funny. It's like this common story of, wow, each team is really good on both
Yeah.
sides of the ball,
I mean,
right?
at this point, you're splitting hairs. To Grant's point, it's they're
Mm-hmm.
top 10 and everything. We're top 10 and everything. There's not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of difference between us, and not a lot of things that you can look at to go, oh, we have a big advantage here. They have a big advantage there.
Mm-hmm.
Both teams are good. At the end of the day, it's who's going to make the most plays, right?
I will say we have one advantage over them. And it sounds like a cliche, but when you have 14 of the last 15 national titles, playing in the Missouri Valley, being number one in the Missouri Valley, I feel like that's such a huge advantage coming into this game.
Are you saying from like a psychological standpoint, or like a physical standpoint, or what do you?
Physical, psychological, I mean, all of it. I
Mm-hmm.
think the ability for what we've done to perform and compete well in the Missouri solidifies us well enough that we can do it anywhere. I mean, when you compare stadiums between them and SDSU, there is about 2,000 fan difference. And I can tell you already, based off of what I've seen traveling wise, I'm pretty sure we're going to have more Coyote fans out at Montana State than we did up in Brookings.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, almost a wash at that point. We're a missed field goal away from beating SDSU. I just think we have a lot that we've already prepared for all season long because of where we play and who we play.
Well, yeah, I think that goes to us just being battle tested. We talked about that, having played the number one, number two, number three, number 5 seeds here now. At this point, we'll have played them all, after Saturday. So, you look at that. I think this team is battle tested. We've taken it on the road. We've shown we can compete. I don't think we should be scared by any means, or be afraid of the moment, and the environment, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I think so. We said we were going to do offense first, is what we were talking about, USD's offense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the biggest thing when it comes to this, too, just establishing the run is going to be step one. They haven't played an offensive line like this yet this season. Heck, even, was it New Mexico or New Mexico State, whatever their FBS was, that they somehow banged their chests on. Yeah, New Mexico.
Yeah,
I don't think they even had an O-line like what we have.
No, actually, New Mexico has a pretty small O-line, even for FCS. So, yeah, this is by far the largest, most physical O-line they're going to see all year. No doubt about it.
And so, yeah, taking advantage of that, yeah, they have 2,000-yard rushers as well. But we got two guys, a little lightning and thunder, that I think are going to have to be the difference maker to start the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree. And we mentioned this all through the playoffs, right? It's the battle of the trenches. It's whoever gets that push. It doesn't do it just for one quarter, but it has to be for 4 quarters. And that's that's been our bread and butter all year. That really sets up everything that we do in the passing game as well. So, and I agree. And so joking about metrics. So talking about our offense, number 6 rushing offense versus the 17th rated rushing defense. So it's it's going to be tough, but we have to maintain a semblance of the run game to set up everything else that we do. We know that.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mitch. I think that's one of the notes that I wrote down, kind of preparing for the show tonight, is that we're going to look to run the ball, obviously, like we have done all year, because when we have success there, the odds of us winning go up exponentially, right? I mean, that's kind of our lifeblood there. But I think also the reason we want to make sure that we establish the run game is so we can kind of minimize possessions and kind of slow the tempo of the game overall, because the last thing that we want to do is get into a shootout with Montana State, who has proven to be able to score pretty much at will at home against their schedule that they played this year, right? So I think that'll be our goal. However, I say that also that if it does go to a shootout, I don't think that necessarily eliminates us, because we've also proven that we have the ability for big chunk plays to score a lot of points. But I think it would be our preference to kind of turn this into a slow grinder. So there may not be many possessions for either offense, because as we know, Montana State also wants to run the ball. That's their bread and butter. They've got 2,000-yard rushers, like you just mentioned.
Well, and that's really what it is. The time of possession game, they're number 3 in the FCS in time of possession to our number 40 ranking, because we do hit a lot of splash plays, a lot of big explosive touchdowns. We talked about that. Our average touchdown is over 20 some yards.
27 and a half yards.
Yeah, which is like first in the FCS. So, you look at that, like we do score in big chunks compared to them, where they're more of kind of that slow, methodical, just grind you down offense. Similar to, I think, really, especially out of the 4 teams left, they're similar to NDSU in that regard, where they just go on those long drives and just grind you down. And so that's really going to be key. And yeah, we need to at least try to maintain, I think, a 50-50 split on time of possession, because we don't want them going on those long drives and making those 11-minute drives touchdowns. And then that's just going to kind of slowly eat us away, I think.
And you can talk about the 11-minute drives by USD's offense, or the 7 to 11 minutes. What I think will be important from the run, establishing the run, is their safeties are their weak spot. Very weak. And I tell you what, the moment you establish the run and you get those safeties biting, is the moment Karan disappears over your head. JJ even disappears over your head. Now that we can say that, we can talk about JJ being back.
right. We know that.
But those guys, I mean, they have their opportunities to do some big work because of what we have in the running backs. And as long as they're working, I think we can have some big hitters too come out on some big plays.
And I agree with you. I think if they have one weakness, and I don't want to say it's like a super weakness by any means, but if there's one weak spot on their defense, it is the secondary. And they've had injuries this year, guys. They had 3 weeks in a row. They had 3 guys go down with ACLs. One was a safety, and one was a linebacker, and I can't remember if the other one was a linebacker or a D lineman. I can't remember, but anyway, they don't have their true starters in at those spots. So, I think there's opportunities to be had there, and we've shown that when we do take those shots, we've been connecting all year. So I think we should have confidence that in this game we should be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for importance-wise, if we are going to take those big shots, it has to be a focus on the double moves. I think we all just learned about Aiden's pump fakes that are all of a sudden there. It's still something new. Teams aren't used to it, so they'll bite on them. But then it's also making sure Karan, I mean, he is so fast, averages 30 yards a catch. Absolutely insane. But if you watch him closely, especially when you're in the stadium, you'll see him get hit hard right away to start a play, knocked off his route, throw off his timing, and he's out of the play. And so that's, I mean, the other factor for those big plays and the double moves is if he can make a quick move and get around his guy, we'll be able to cook on them.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think for us to score again, I think you have to establish that run game, but it's really become the norm for us to score on a big play, or if not score, like we saw last week, Karan, he didn't score on it, but got us down to the 4-yard line, and then that's a wrap after that with Tice, right? So it's really a spot where we've come to rely on those, but it's not by accident, right? It's because we can run the ball effectively. It's because we're being balanced and we're doing all the right things. And I think that continues on Saturday. I really do. I think
it's good design too.
Yes, exactly. It's designed that way is probably a better way to put it. You're exactly right. So I think the other thing too that and this can be, I guess, kind of a comment for either side of the ball, but we mentioned the size of our O-line. I think this is going to be by far the most physical team that Montana State has played this year, even including New Mexico, right? I think that's a lot of the comparisons as you look through their schedule. There's not a lot of quality opponents, and that's not to poo-poo on the Big Sky this year, but it's just the reality of the Big Sky, right? It's very similar to the Missouri Valley. They were ultra top heavy. Really, their only quality opponent in conference, in my opinion, was UC Davis. And that was a pretty tight game, right? But we kind of saw the physicality that we put up against UC Davis. In my opinion, after I went back and watched it, I thought we were ultra physical with them. And I think Montana State might be having to adjust a little bit for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another thing to add to that too, for the offensive line, you saw when we talked about this on our show earlier this week, was the two guys that went down with injury on the line. They're back on the depth chart as starters, so that seems to be good news there. One guy to watch on their defense, they don't have a ton of big name players, like household name players on defense per se, because everybody just talks about Tommy all the time. But for defense, one guy to watch is a senior defensive end, Brody Gravy or Grabe. 31 tackles, 6.5 sacks. Greeby, I think it is. He's probably their best player on defense, maybe outside of some guys that went down with injury that I mentioned. But I think if our line can get a push, I think that goes a long way to just doing everything that we've seen this team do all year long. And you guys know we're not going to beat it to death, but like just talking about exactly how we attack teams from an offensive perspective. I think we can get a push, then everything in the playbook is unlocked, and that's when we cook.
Well, and I can tell you too, when it comes to stud DNs like that, what we'll end up doing is you'll see us motion a tight end into that spot, or AJ Coons into that spot in front of him, just to not block but bump.
Yeah, check.
And it's the exact same thing I was saying about Karan getting thrown off his route. You're hoping that bump will throw him into the O-line, into the teeth of the O-line, and keep him in there where you can gain an extra second of pocket time, really.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, I will say I do think there's opportunities for us to do something against this Montana State defense. We've seen teams go over there and do it, but they have also been on a heater.
Yeah.
These playoffs. It's absolutely nuts.
No doubt. And I want to mention crowd noise too, since we're talking about offense. Like, we're going to have to, obviously that is a factor. Like, we'd be silly to say it's not. Obviously it's not a dome, but we know it is a factor. And so the guys are going to have
electronic crowd noise.
So the guys are going to have to be, prepared for that. And I'm not saying they won't be, but I'm just saying it is a factor, because, one or two false starts here and there on a drive, and pretty soon your drive's over. So I'm just saying that is a factor. We're going to have to, play smart in that regard. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, to your point too earlier, I think part of being battle tested is kind of being environment tested too, right? We played our game up at Brookings this year in front of, 19,000 fans. That's a rivalry game. That's about as good of environment you're going to get. And then any of the guys who played last year up at the Fargo Dome, that environment's very similar too. So it's something that we haven't seemed to have issues with. But to your point, this year we haven't played in that type of environment in quite a long time, right? I think Brookings was the last time for sure. And actually, same thing with weather-wise, right? It sounds like it's going to be mid-40s, which is almost identical to what we played in Brookings, and that seemed to be a non-factor. So
the last I saw was 49 with like 7-mile-an-hour winds. So in terms of end of December in Bozeman, guys, I don't think we could have asked for anything better.
Gift.
Yeah.
Santa put a gift under the tree a few days early.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For our guys and the fans, right? I mean, as much as I know the fans turn out, but you can't tell me anybody's excited to go sit at a game that's going to be 5 degrees with a 25-mile-an-hour wind, right? That's just not fun for anybody. So
I'm jealous of the tailgate.
Right. Exactly.
Perfect. Yeah. So all these guys, I'll tell you what, things are lining up for us here in terms of that. So I agree with you. I think we will have some success on offense. I don't think we get stalemated by any means.
No.
And like Grant said, this could turn into a shootout. We don't really want it to, but it very well could.
And just to that point of turning into a shootout, I am going to say it because I've said it before and I haven't got roasted for it yet. We have the best skill position set up in the nation. Nobody has what we have in wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. Nobody has that quality of depth. And so this is going to be something new that they haven't seen because it's a death by 1,000 cuts. You don't know where it's coming from, but it's coming. And so as long as Tice and Pierre Jr. are eating, everything will be working. But that's really where it needs to get started at.
For sure.
All right. Ready to jump over to the defense side of things? I feel like
buckle
my
up.
UC Davis redo for the pregame. It's got one name on the piece of paper.
One name. Say you start first. I've got some thoughts about who you're about to talk about.
It's Tommy Mellott. I enunciate correctly on it.
You can give him his flowers. Call him Tommy Touchdown. We've done that every single week in the playoffs. We've given the opponents their flowers, and we've gone on to beat them. So you can go ahead and give him his flowers. It's fine.
You guys go ahead and keep talking about him. Actually, I'm gonna find that list that you shared with us. I just remembered it.
Okay, so I'll mention right off the bat. Senior dual threat. I mean, he is the guy. He's the dude, the guy, the man, the myth, the legend, the hometown hero from Butte, Montana. Everybody knows him in the state. He's the guy. He was, and actually still is, because we don't know the winner, but the Walter Payton Award, he is in the finals, final 3. So that's to be determined. Grant, as far as stats go, what does he got, like 2,400 yards and like 1 million touchdowns and a couple interceptions?
Yeah, I've got it pulled up here. So he's got 24.54 on passing yards, 70.4% completion rate, with 28 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the year. So
and then what about rushing? Give me rushing too.
Yeah, his rushing stats are equally impressive. 92 carries for 790 yards with 12 touchdowns on the year. So,
as he goes.
I was just about to say that they go as he goes, and he's gone all year long. Right? There's no denying that. I think I said it after the NDSU game, or maybe before it, that I said Cam Miller had pretty much had the Walter Payton wrapped up. I think my tune could be changed on that. I think, to be honest, either one of those guys, whoever wins it, I think you can make an argument for it.
That they didn't pick the wrong person.
You could. There's really no wrong answer. I think it's those. It's clearly those two, and really nobody else. But the way that Montana State's been playing here late in the season / into the playoffs, it's as good as anybody in the country, right? And that's the reason they're number 1. So talk about giving flowers, well earned, and he's really the heartbeat of this offense.
So we've talked about this. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say he has another gear as a runner too. I mean, you can see that on tape. You watch him play, and he just hits yet another gear that most guys don't, and he's slippery. And so that's where he really challenges you, because if he gets through to that second level, he can easily slip by guys, and I think that's a big key in this game.
Yeah, and this is we've were texting about this, and we never had a for sure confirmation on it. And then Jay Elson tweeted it out. USD's defense has faced 6 of the top 10 finalists for the Walter Payton Award.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you got the Bunnies quarterback in Mark. Kavion Britton was number 8 from Tarleton State. Miles Hastings, quarterback for UC Davis. I mean, he did throw for a lot of yards, but he also threw for a lot of interceptions. Landon Larison, I'm going to give him a pass because he didn't get to play the game that much. Cam Miller, I mean, we held him to the least amount of completions he's had all season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and yeah, you're right. It's going to come down to one of those two, and you're not wrong with whoever you pick. But I think the biggest goal for USD is to somehow find a way to transform Tommy of 2024 into Tommy of 2023.
There you go. Yep.
And you know, Johansson is watching film from last season and seeing what happened in those, why he was doing bad. Obviously, he's transformed himself. What he's done, because he's been a runner. He's been a heck of a runner.
Well, that's just
But
it.
now-
He became a passer. I think that's the biggest difference. He can pass the ball now.
I'll be honest, he's a completely different quarterback, but his stats remind me of both the state quarterbacks. He does it in a different way.
Oh yeah.
Passing looks identical, but with him being shorter, and we have some tall D linemen, that's going to be an advantage as well. But with him being a little shorter, his passes are a little errant, but he's faster.
You thinking
He's
some
much
thinking
faster.
some tip balls? Is that what you're saying again?
Oh yeah, you got Carter Hooper and Marquise Grace on both ends. If they can curl the pocket properly and just keep him in the pocket, their length on the edge, you're going to see what we saw was at Tarleton State with Marquise Grace and his shoe logo play. I mean, get the paws up because he's not tall.
I tell you what, you know the saying, you guys have been around football long enough and watched enough, you know that turnovers come in bunches. And we've seen that in the first 2 games of the playoffs we've played. And yeah, if we can turn Tommy touchdown into Tommy turnover and get a couple off of them, it doesn't matter how or what they look like. We can get a couple. I think that's just enough to flip this game in our favor.
Yeah, make a great point, because if you were to take one overarching, what do we need to do on defense versus this Montana State offense? It's that we have to create turnovers. And that's something that we talked about 5-6 weeks ago, where this team just really wasn't a team that created turnovers. And now all of a sudden in the playoffs, we have turned into this turnover machine on defense. So we really need to continue that. And I think I'd love to see us turnover margin, +2, +3. I think that's kind of what you have to do when you're hitting the road against a really quality opponent. And I think this defense has all the tools to do that, right? It's just a matter of how we're going to get them and where they come from. But I think that's a really important kind of caveat to the defense in a whole for Saturday.
Yeah, we talk about stealing a possession. Let's not onside kick it after a touchdown. How about that?
Right. I don't think there's
Right,
anything in Bob's history book that shows that he's going to get ready for an onside kick anywhere on Saturday. So I don't think we have to worry about that.
We have to steal a possession, but yeah, we're not doing it that way.
And get this too, just going back to that turnover conversation, I wanted to double check before I said it. We had 11 in the regular season for turnovers. We have 9 in the playoffs.
Right.
We're 2 turnovers away from doubling our season total in 3 games. Now, I will say there's a weird thing with turnovers too. It's luck, but it's also not, because you see the good teams get the turnovers. And with it, I mean, there is a little luck in play. With Carter Hooper tipping the ball properly, that landed right in Newsom's hands, whereas it would have been at least a 20, 30-yard gain. But I think, being as good as we are, all those notes came in.
The comments.
But with it, we're such a good defense that those turnovers are finally coming because of our efforts, is really where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, I get you. And I disagree on the luck part, because I don't really think any of the turnovers that we've seen have really been lucky. I think a lot of them we've forced them. You're seeing us we're getting pressure. We're taking teams out of their style of play and forcing them to play a different game. and that's ultimately leading to mistakes on their end. And our guys are jumping routes, getting hands on balls, and just making things messy, for lack of a better term. They're just mucking up the game, and then balls are landing in our hands. So I think that's really really what it is. I think it's just the style of play, and with what effort you're seeing from this defense. I think that's just really what it is from my perspective.
Yeah. I think it's also.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I think it's also. I mentioned it on Monday's show, but it's one of those things where you hear about teams complaining, "Oh man, we played our worst game of the year against this really good team. We turned the ball over X amount of times." It's like, well, there's probably a reason for that, right? It's a team that's super disruptive on multiple levels that's forcing your team into mistakes. So I agree with Mitch on that. I think we'll see some of that on Saturday because, again, going back to, and I should have mentioned the stat earlier, but metric wise, this is the best team that Montana State is going to play all year long, and it's by a pretty wide margin. So I wrote this down. I pulled the S&P Plus, just ranks all teams across all levels, right? So before us, the highest ranked team they've played is New Mexico, ranked at 123, and we're ranked at 89. And that's against all teams in the country. So we're talking FBS, FCS, the whole college landscape, right? So that's something that is really interesting as we go into this matchup because it's not like we're some middle of the road team that's trying to hit the road to Montana State and win a ball game through a miracle. We're a really good football team that's coming to Montana State.
I will say too, and I was looking at the stats just as a whole, and it's absolutely wild looking at the season stats between both teams, and if you put them side by side. They have 2,000-yard rushers. They have a quarterback that's thrown for 2,400 yards. We have a quarterback that's thrown for, I think he's at 2,300 now. We have two running backs over 1,000 yards. Their highest receiver or highest receiving yardage total is 470, but the ball's been spread out by so many people. It's kind of identical. The huge difference is Aiden is a pocket quarterback. Their quarterback will tear you apart if you leave any opening whatsoever on the run.
Yeah, so you mentioned a couple other guys. I just want to call out their names real quick so fans can know that. So they lost their true starting running back. Their number one guy they lost early in the year too. So he's I don't know if he was a junior or senior, but he's not there due to injury. But they've got sophomore Scott Ray Humphrey, and then they've got freshman Adam Jones. And
Adam Jones,
those two guys, they're young, but you mentioned it. They're both over 1,000 yards. They both have very similar touchdown totals to Tice.
They're equal.
Are they equal?
No, sorry, they're equal. Humphreys and Jones are equal to each other. Yes.
Yeah, they both have 14. That's right. So, and then wide receiver Ty McCulloch and Taco Dowler. That's a good name, Taco Dowler. And you mentioned it. They spread the ball around a lot. They don't have like one stud receiver that they go to. They don't have a Darius Cooper like we saw against Tarleton. They spread the ball out to all of them. Like Jake mentioned, they both just have maybe 400 yards or so, a handful of touchdowns. But and then Rohan Jones. Rohan Jones is the guy that if you listen to national media guys, they talk about him a lot. He hasn't played since November. Kind of a stud tight end for them, similar to JJ. I'm not gonna say he's as good as JJ, but he's a damn good tight end. He is questionable for this game, and so is that running back Scott Ray Humphrey as well. So I'd be curious to see if those guys are a go. If not, they're gonna lean on the freshman Adam Jones and tilt the rock. He had 4 touchdowns last game against Idaho. So I expect to see a lot of him if the other one can't go.
Now Humphrey and Rohan are both on the depth chart,
right?
So. I would say it's a pretty good bet that they're going to come back in some sort of capacity. For the running back side of things with Humphrey and Jones, I guarantee what's going to happen is Jones is going to be your leading bell cow back. I bet
so. Especially having the hot hand coming off the last game. I would think so too.
Exactly. He earned it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So I could expect him to have anywhere from 15 to 20. And then with Humphreys, I guarantee he's going to be it depends on how the game goes, but they're a running first team. He's probably gonna have 8 to 12 carries coming off injury like that.
Yeah, and then same thing with Tommy, right? Tommy Mellott, he's going to run the ball. I was looking at this today, his rushes by game, and in the no-name opponents they've played and the weak opponents they've played, he had 3 to 6 rushes a game, and in all of the quality opponents that they've had, Idaho twice, the New Mexico game, and UC Davis, he had between 10 and like 14 rushes per game. So I fully expect to see at least 10 from him, but probably closer to 15, honestly. If we can take away their traditional run game, like I fully expect us to do a good job there. I expect to see more Tommy runs. And to that point, I just want to say too, now that we're deep in the playoffs, they've taken the reins off of him, whereas kind of earlier in the season they were protecting him, didn't want to get him hurt. The reins are off. They've given him the green light to run wild.
Take whatever.
So I don't fully, I fully expect him to run and not duck out of bounds, that kind of stuff. Where I think he's going to be putting it all on the line to get to Frisco. So with that being said, he is also susceptible to hits, and we mentioned that in our text group that our guys can thump. And so any chance that he runs, I know our guys are going to be looking to lay that big hit on him. So just want to throw that out there too.
I'm not going to say it this time.
Here's your chance. I just served it. I served it up on a silver platter.
Yeah, you served it up. But and it's not fair to say it when it comes to a quarterback side of things, because you take a quarterback out of any offense, the offense is going to be completely different.
For those of you that don't know,
I still feel horrible for Lan.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, last week Jake mentioned Lan going down, and it happened. So
what would happen if UC Davis lost Lan and he went down in the beginning of the second? I still feel bad, and I apologize every time I think about it to him. Obviously, I'll never meet him. But you can't really say it on a quarterback because, what would pretty much any team out there we saw what Idaho looked like when they lost Jack Lane. It just a completely different team.
I mean, it is, and any team would be, right? I mean, at this stage of the game with the teams that are left, I mean, yeah.
So no, I think the biggest key that we're gonna need is somebody that just lights them up, thump them. Not so much on the running backs because they're used to hits. But if Tommy gets a good hit, somebody gets a good hit on Tommy, not going for injuries or anything, just let them know we're there. It's something that gets put into his head. Obviously, cold is not going to be a factor. It's going to be high. The sun's going to be high in the sky during it. It's not going to cool down during the game by any means. So you don't have to worry about a cold and then getting hit. But I think what we're going to need, edges are going to have to work big time. And then we are going to have a linebacker running spy. And if he's running spy and the running back runs out of the backfield in front of him on a route, put him in the ground, thump him once within that area where you can hit receivers so you can knock them off the route, throw off their timing. And I think that would be the recipe to keep this game close, and if not, win it.
So I want to ask you guys this. We talk about the trenches. Obviously, that's the key. It's the key part of the game. Everything happens in the trenches, on both sides of the ball, and it's really important. But I want to ask you guys, what do you guys think of the matchup with Gary Bryant and Nate Ewell against Tommy? Like what are your thoughts on that? Like, how confident are you? Because you mentioned the spy, and I think that's really what it is. What are your thoughts on that?
I love Gary Bryant matching up against him. Tommy's going to be faster than him. 10 times out of 10. He will win every race. But what I love about Gary is he's smart. And so he knows his angles. And if he gives up an extra 2-3 yards just to make sure he got the right angle on Tommy to get a sound tackle, a wrap-up tackle, not on the toes, grabbing the shoestrings tackle, he'll do it. I have some concerns with Nate. He's more of our running back specialist when it comes to it. I don't know if he has the ability to get the correct reads yet on it, because this isn't something he's seen a quarterback at this speed, and coming up from D3 to FCS is a huge jump still too.
I mean, it's a tall task for any set of backers.
It is, yes.
And I think about all the dual threat quarterbacks we faced this year. Obviously, this is going to be the best one that we faced in that regard.
Yeah.
It's a tall task, but I was just going to say that I would add, those guys, it's going to be key, but I would add Dennis Shorter and JoJo Gaines. Because the safeties are going to have to come downhill and help, especially on those design quarterback runs. I think that's going to be a huge piece as well, in just how we fill lanes. And you mentioned taking the proper angles and all that stuff, and I really think that's what it comes down to. And we've seen this team all year tackle well, and I fully expect that to continue in this game as well. But yeah, just a huge chess match, really. And for me, the game, looking at which way this game goes ultimately, is who wins that chess match between. It's a cat and mouse between him and our really our front seven, but essentially it's going to be with the safeties helping too.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You're
spoiling some stuff for me.
I was going to say, I would just two comments I wanted to make. Mitch mentioned it earlier that we see Tommy doing some more rushing when it's against better opponents, and I think that's because better opponents are making it a little bit tougher to find the open receiver to run the ball, whatever that might look like. So I think we'll see that again, where he's going to take off with the ball because he's forced to. I think our secondary is very good too. We don't blitz a lot. We drop a lot of guys historically, so I think we're going to have a lot. So it'll be super important for us to keep him in check with, like you said, Gary Bryant, Ewell, whoever it might be. But the other thing that's interesting about Montana State that I think is going to be different from the last 2 weeks is that this offense is not going to take a lot of deep shots or chances, if you will, like Tarleton and UC Davis did. That led to a lot of turnovers, right? They're just not built that way, where those last two teams where they're comfortable throwing it 50 times a game. I don't think Montana State has any interest in that, nor do we, right? Like you said, we're similarly built. We don't want to throw the ball 50 times, and they don't want to either. So I think instead of seeing somebody chuck it down the field and say, hey, I'm going to give my guy a chance, that's where, Tommy's going to take off with it. And he's going to, and he's putting his foot in the ground and going.
And that's what's so crazy about, if you look at the three opponents that we'll have had in the playoffs to this point, it's so drastically different in the style of play that their offenses have had. We've had that long mesh RPO with the wide receiver splits, and we've had the screen game of UC Davis with a really pass-heavy attack. And now you've got a complete opposite in a just running brigade, just a barrage of runs and trying to just ground and pound you and grind you down. And they do it in a multiple of ways, but it essentially is all just, it's a rushing attack. And so stopping that, I'm confident, though. We haven't talked about metrics yet, but our rushing defense is 10th rated to their number 2 rushing offense. So both top 10. They have arguably the best rushing offense in the FCS. And so it's going to be a big task. But I know.
Do you have the passing numbers?
Yeah, I do. Passing defense for us rated 46. Their passing offense is 83.
Okay.
So not a highly rated passing offense. I would say efficient, right? Kind of like our offense. Yes. Aiden, because we know that his completion percentage is around 70. We know he has 28 touchdowns. Very efficient, but not a high passing attack like we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I would say too that. No, I was just going to say that those numbers are always skewed a little bit, right? To say that they're not a good passing team would be incorrect. It's just that they haven't had to do it all year, right? They like to run the ball. They've had success running the ball. So forcing them into some things that they might be uncomfortable with would be something nice to see us do on Saturday too. But
absolutely, make them one-dimensional. Take away the run game.
And they'll try to do the same.
Exactly. So you guys want to talk key players?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Go through some predictions.
Yep.
So we'll jump into our key players, but for the folks that are watching and follow along, feel free to leave your score prediction in the chat, and we'll get to those here in a bit. We already see a couple coming in, and I like the way they look so far.
Do we want to do offense or defense first?
We always start on the offensive side of the ball, so we'll keep rolling with that.
Let's do it.
All right. If anybody wants to step up and take it, or I can go first too.
Go ahead.
Go
Grant.
for it.
No, Grant, you go.
All right.
You want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah, Jake always steals mine.
Well, okay.
I was gonna say I probably didn't steal yours, but maybe I did.
So it's actually funny. I have two picks. I don't even have secondary picks on this week because these picks, I'm throwing the metrics out. I'm throwing the regular season out. I'm throwing all of that out. So my first pick is Travis Tice, in that we've talked about it all year long about a guy who literally is going to will this team to win. He's going to be ultra impactful this game, because it seems like every big game he seems to answer the bell. He seems to be the guy that we always can lean on and go to, and I don't think that changes on Saturday. And I think for a guy like him that is literally staring down a maybe his last game of football ever, that's impactful, and that's super important to a guy like him. So I think he's going to have a day where it's going to be tough, right? This is the semis. There's nothing easy now, but he's a guy I look to that's really going to be ultra impactful. I think rushing, receiving, pass blocking, all phases of the game. So I'm really looking for Tice to be that senior leader that we've seen all year long.
Pound the rock.
Pound the rock.
Hold on. So you got me thinking when you said that, and I'm going to share it. You talk about a guy that wants to will his way
Oh,
his
yeah.
team.
Oh, yeah.
This still that Mitch grabbed off of a highlight. Listen,
Yep.
he got wrapped up at the 4-yard line
By 3 guys. There was 3 guys
by 3
there.
guys.
Yeah.
And he scored this touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy that wants it.
This is Exhibit 1A.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's one thing you need evidence on, and this is the only. This is what proves it. This guy, he's going to do whatever it takes, and if he walks off the field, after one drive and says, "Coach, I can only do 2 or 3 carries because that's what it's going to take to win," he'll 100% say that.
Mm-hmm.
This guy does not care what his stats say. He just cares what that final scoreboard says. And as long as there's a W over Coyotes, he's happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, he's the Mount Rushmore of USD athletics.
And with how hard he runs, guys, there's a tone that's set there. And the rest of the offense, and even probably the entire team, feeds off of that. And so, by far the inspirational leader of the team, through maybe not necessarily with his words, but with his play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say, you can't say that Gary's on the sideline watching Tice run over the middle linebacker of the opponent and going, "Oh, I don't want to be that highlight reel, so I need to go hit harder."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For sure.
All right, Mitch, I'll let you go so I don't steal yours.
Oh man! All right. Well, so Tice was on my list, but I will go Aiden.
Okay.
And it's his time. It's his team. We talk about Tice being the inspirational leader through his play, and Aiden's that calm, cool, collected presence. He's got us here. He's done everything correct. This season he's really locked in. He's efficient. And so I just think if anybody's going to have a day, it's going to be him. And we talked about the opportunities in the pass game, because they will be there. The shots are going to be there. Hitting that long Quran bomb is going to be there. And he's dropped some in the bucket, over and over this season. And so I think that it's his time. I think he's going to be called upon in this game, as he was in the NDSU game, in the SDSU game, to make those throws. And so I just think there's going to be a couple moments in this game, and it's his time to shine. And so I'm going with Aiden.
Yeah, and you're correct. And when it comes to those long bombs, the hitting them in stride is going to be such a huge factor. That's the one thing I've noticed when it comes to the Cron bombs. It's not 100% in stride yet. And so even if you can't throw with him distance-wise, throw him open to a sideline. I that's my one thing that I always hang on. But that way you can still throw it. He can run under it, maintain his speed, and continue on. And because I think, like that 71-yard reception against UC Davis, that should be a touchdown if he's hit in stride. And that's, where I think Aiden's really going to be focused at. But you were close. He was my number 2 option. So
I want to say too, before you give yours, I just want to say too, with the altitude, that ball's going to float a little bit differently.
I was going to say, a little thin air might get a little air under that.
Yeah, so I'm hoping they're playing around with that, in pregame and really testing out a few of those routes to see how that ball hangs, because it will. You guys know, it will hang up there a little bit more, and so that you talk about kind of leading those guys. It's make or break. It can be a difference of an interception or a touchdown. So, looking at that,
it ain't mile high, but
no, but it's close.
Damn near there. So, and mine comes down to 2 people, 2 big factors. I'm gonna give it to Joey Lombard. You keep saying Aiden's the calm, cool, collected guy. He's the anchor of the O line, and obviously, I'm trying not to give it to the whole O line, so I had to pick a guy. But he's the leader of that pack. He's got to keep them calm, cool, collected. The stadium's going to be a factor, whether it's electronic noise or real noise. He's going to have to be cool. He's going to have to be set on the snaps and know what's going on. My backup one, it's going to come down to Will. I think he's going to have an opportunity potentially to have a get-right kick. And same thing like you guys just mentioned on Aiden's throws. Altitude. Heck, we might see Zeke Mata set a school record for distance. We know he's got a leg on it.
The ball goes further. I mean, 60 wouldn't be 58, 60 wouldn't be out of the question for him.
Yeah, if it's a halftime kick, I guarantee that coach would send that out there for an opportunity, because he hit a 54, I think, in the dome against Northern. Yep. But with it, I will say, I've said it every time since the SDSU game. We have an opportunity to kick a game-winning field goal. I trust Will 100% on that, and that we might come down to it.
Yeah,
I mean, we're at that point where it's going to be a factor again, and so we need to believe in him, because I know he believes in himself. He's got an opportunity to go out and win it for us. He could do it.
100%.
All right, defensive side.
Yep, go ahead.
I mean, we've already said it, the names. I feel
like. Yeah, right.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep. You want me to start again?
Yep, I know mine.
Yeah, we'll just do the same order.
All right.
We all probably know yours.
I was just going to say, honestly, if based off my first pick, you probably know my second pick, because it's exactly the same reasoning, is that this is a do or die game for this guy. It could be his last game ever, right? Potentially. So knowing how much is at stake, it's going to be Dennis Shorter. I expect, this isn't fair to say that I expect, but don't be surprised if we see a similar game like we did against SDSU.
Man, I would love that.
When the lights are the brightest, when we need him the most, that's when he shines, right? So I think we see another career type game from Dennis on Saturday. He's the leader of that defense. We've talked about how those safeties are going to have to come up in that run help. I think he's going to have a day on Saturday, and I think he relishes the challenge to go up and do that. So Shorter for me.
Yeah. And that's where he shines, I think, is coming downhill and laying the wood on running back or quarterback coming through the hole. So
he loves contact.
He loves contact. We've seen that time and time again this season. So great pick. All right, my turn, Jake.
Yeah, go for it. We'll keep the same order.
I'm going all 11, just like I did last week. All 11. It doesn't matter. Second platoon defensive line. All four. You got all 4 new guys coming in. It doesn't matter. All 11 who are out there on the field, tackling, laying the wood, playing smart, all the things we talked about last week. It's the same thing. Just continue to wreak havoc, play with your hair on fire, get a couple turnovers, and we sneak out of Bozeman with this dub and make our way to Frisco.
Exactly. I like it. So I'm not going all 11. I'm not cheating and just picking 11. But
it worked last week. I gave you guys 6 freaking turnovers by calling out all 11. What do you want? You want 7 this week?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if we have 7, please. I know we won't turn it over 3 times. So I will say this. Mine does come down to 3 guys. It's going to be Mikeese Grace. It's going to be Carter Hooper. It's going to be Jonathan Bunce. Ooh. The way they run their RPO, those guys have to set the edge, be extremely disruptive.
Blow it up.
Blow it up. Even if it isn't and it's just a draw play or a stretch to the side, absolutely knock whatever tackle is in front of you down and run through them. Because the moment you turn that running back in is the moment we win. Because you're going to have 5, 6 white helmets swarming to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically speaking, they're probably not going to have much for stats. But if we do get an opportunity where we walk out of this game with 2, 3, 4 sacks, I'm putting a W on the scoreboard.
Right.
It is really what I believe in. But the edge is where it's going to be the most important.
All right.
All right. You guys ready to do some score predictions?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
If you're here still watching live, please throw them in.
So
I'll start with the two that we have up.
Yeah, go ahead. Put those up.
Yeah, so first we got Tanner. We got 26-24 Coyotes.
Ooh.
Love that.
Is it going to be a nail biter or like they just scored a last possession touchdown just to make it look closer than what it was?
I'm trying to think of the math on that. How do we get to 26? We got
very carefully.
I mean, we got to 29. So
a bunch of field goals there, or what? Or a missed PAT? What are we doing there?
Oh, it all makes sense. All right, and then we got Yo Fan. Here's Will Leyland special.
Yeah.
You know, there's a good opportunity that this I could see. I love this game because, and I know there's a couple Montana State fans watching with us too, and they'll throw a Montana State
Tanner.
win up there. It won't
Tanner
surprise
with
me.
the clap back here.
Yeah. +1. I think where we get that 1.
How do you get to 25?
Yeah, get to 25 and then get 1. No, I know what he's saying. Funny guy.
That was hilarious.
Oh God.
Thank you, Tanner.
All right, we'll just keep our order going. So Grant, you got to step up.
Yeah. No, I think this is a fun game for USD. We mentioned at the beginning of the show a little bit, but we didn't mention it a ton. But this is a game that nationally, no one's going to pick the Yotes. That's the reality of it, right? Is that no one is going to pick Montana State to lose at home. It's the number 1 seed. There, right? There's the list, right there.
You can see it.
Yeah,
that's coming through pretty good.
There's the list.
Right. That's the reality of this game. And as I mentioned earlier, I think this team likes that spot. I think all the pressure is on Montana State. Obviously, at this point of the season, everybody's has everything to lose. So I don't want to say it's a nothing to lose type game, but it has a little bit of feel for that for us. So the reason I say that is that you come into this game, and again, it's I don't want to downplay the environment and how good Montana State is because they're number 1 for a reason. But I think this team, if these two teams play 10 times, we probably win 3 or 4 times out of 10. Right? That's kind of the reality of how I see it. But there's just at Bozeman. At Bozeman.
Okay.
Yep. At
Okay.
Bozeman.
Okay.
Yep. At
Okay.
Bozeman. Yep.
Okay.
At Bozeman, I think we win 3 or 4 times out of 10.
Okay.
Right?
That's fair.
But there's just something about this team that we here have all seen all year long, right? That there's just it has that it factor. They have that swagger that you've called it before, Mitch. That I think the Yotes go into Montana State and they get it done. And I don't say that because I'm a Yote fan. I don't say that because I'm a homer. I say that because I really do believe this team is something special that we've seen all year long. So I'm taking the Yotes. I'm taking them 29-28 in a last minute. No, hold on. Wait till you hear the rest of it.
Oh God.
Yes, identical to NDSU, but in this case, I think we do it on a last minute 2-point conversion. I think we go for it late in the game to take the 1-point lead, do or die on the road. I think we do it. So give me the Yotes 29-28 with a 2-point conversion with less than about 90 seconds on the clock. That's my prediction.
I might not make it there because I'll probably have a heart attack before we get to the 2.
Correct. I may not actually see the final score if that's the case. I may be dead on my basement floor, but that's my prediction.
The amount of tickets that would not be scooped up by Yote fans because we all had heart attacks afterwards would be astronomical in that situation.
Unreal.
But we did get a couple more predictions in the chat. My brother popped in. 38-27 Coyotes.
Nice.
We got 27-23 Yotes. And I do want to say, with this, just throughout the season, I've loved this. What this team has done has instilled a winning culture within the program. Well, that's bleeding out into the fan base. I guarantee, going into this game, let's say it was swap Montana State and Portland State. We're going to actually get an opportunity to play Montana State as the third game of the year. I don't know how many fans would actually pick us to win.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a change in the fan base. This movement that's been created by this football team last season, that as we continue to grow, the fan base is finally growing along with it. I mean, we commented on it last time, but the fans for the UC Davis game, they were standing from first through third, fourth down. That place was rocking from the first quarter to the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So, things have changed. Yeah, we haven't filled the stadium yet. I don't care about filling the stadium. I care about putting the right people in the seats. And that's what we've done so far. And this is what the team's really done for us.
Well, Tanner will help fill the dome for you. He's got unborn children that are coming, so.
I didn't read it because you guys were laughing, and I knew what you were laughing at, so I avoided it. We'll throw that up there so you can see it. All right, Mitch.
Speaking of cocky fans, by the way, go over to the Montana State chat forum and read some of those comments. Man, there's comments all over the place that Montana State's just going to steamroll us. So, if you want a good laugh, go check out their fan forum.
Maybe that's what a winning history does. That's what a winning culture does, and I don't blame them. But if they weren't saying it, I'd be disappointed in them. And that's where
3 scores, 4 scores, 5 scores win. Come on. Get out of here. We're not Idaho. Come on.
I will say this too. The gentleman Jeffing around, who was giving us a hard time about saying fake crowd noises and free student tickets. He's already been in our Twitter comments since the podcast started. So we're doing our job.
That's fine. We're just poking the bear. That's all. No big deal. So before I give my prediction, Jake, I just want to mention too, the spread has moved. Started off at 6.5, and now it's 8.
Mm-hmm.
So that thing has been slowly moving as the week progresses in Montana State's favor. The other thing we always talk about Massey. Massey gives us a 38% win probability, and Massey likes Montana State 28-24. So, within that realm of spread, and then the Reddit FCS spread, and those guys, we've looked at that too all year. The Reddit guys, they've been pretty accurate. They've got Montana State minus 6.5. So something else there for Yote fans to chew on. We already mentioned too, all of the national guys have picked Montana State. The only two, we talk about Sam Herder and the Hack City guys, the FCS guys, Gary and Craig, the Blue Bloods guys. Gary Reasons, man.
Sorry.
I know, so he's picked against us, the entire playoffs. And at this point, I'm calling it the Gary inverse. And since he's already picked against us as of today, it came out, I'm feeling pretty good going into Saturday. The Blue Bloods, if you guys don't listen to Blue Bloods, this is my shout out. No free shout outs to the Blue Bloods at the Blue Bloods podcast. Great show. Timothy Rosario and Zach McKinnell. Very knowledgeable guys. They were the only two. They were the only two in the national media to pick us last week against UC Davis at home. They actually went against us this week. They think Montana State's just going to be too much. And then the only other ones I haven't listened to yet is the FCS Nation radio guys. Their episode just came out here before we went live. And so I haven't listened to them yet, but I assume they've also picked Montana State after they picked UC Davis last week. But yeah, so with all that being said, it's us against the world. We've mentioned that umpteen times already on this show. I'm going 27-24 Yotes.
Yep. I like it.
So again, Will Leyland field goal. We've kind of, again, talked about that several times too. So,
and will we trust?
Will we trust?
I will say this too. I have the utmost respect for what Montana State has done. It does not matter what conference you're in, whether you're in the Big Sky, the Missouri, or any other conference out there, to go 14-0 on the season is an unbelievable accomplishment. They should be proud of that. They are a physical, tough team. This is going to be our biggest challenge we've had since we played the Bison, which I know wasn't that long ago. It is going to be a tough game, and I think your comment is 100% right. 3 or 4 times out of 10, we win in Bozeman. There's something about this team that, yeah, I mean, we're Yote fans. We see it because we've watched every game. I will say this, though. It's there. Our opportunity is there. We're going to take advantage of it. I am calling for the 38-35 USD win.
All right,
I'm sticking with my – yeah, I think there's going to be an opportunity there. Hey, you know what? Yeah, bet the over on this. It's going to be an absolute blast. I can't wait to go to Frisco with you guys, with everybody here.
Mm-hmm.
This game is going to be probably the craziest game in FCS this season. So enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. We've come a long, long ways. It's not over by any means. So enjoy these last 2 games because next year it's going to look completely different in a good way. But enjoy it now.
I want to mention this too before we get out of here is that do you notice how everybody always says and has said this in the playoffs all throughout is that our games are the best games of the week, but yet they won't pick us.
Right.
It's just kind of interesting. They're like, oh, it's gonna be the best game. Then they won't pick us to win, and here we are still standing. So I'm all right with that.
It seems like everybody forgets, but USD is the kind of team that'll punch you in the mouth and take your lunch money.
That is a great clip. I
love that clip.
That's a great clip.
All right. Well,
check out John's comment real quick before you sign off.
Oh yeah, we got one more prediction.
The mayor's here.
27. The mayor of Vermilion is joining us, and he's going to have a city council meeting in Frisco.
Let's go.
I might pop in to help you convince the town on Bob National
Day
or Vermilion Bob Day.
Yep. Absolutely.
There you go.
Let's do it.
I will say we've done enough talking on this. It's time to settle this on the field. I have not been more amped for a game in my life. This is absolutely going to be a blast, and enjoy it, Coyotes, because we deserve it.
That's right. Absolutely.
All right. Go Yotes.
Go Yotes.
Go Yotes.